Hey all, what's up? It's Amanda and I am back with another video. So today's video is going to be my January wrap up. I read a total of 9 books in January. One of them was a picture book, but I'm still counting it. Who cares? So I'm just gonna get right on into it. Alright, so if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my Storygraph app to remember like what order I read these books in. So the first book I read was actually the picture book that I mentioned earlier, and this was Homeland, My Father Dreams of Palestine by Hannah Mushabek and possibly also by Reem Madhu. I think that's correct. And this was just kind of the story about Hannah, the author, her father, and his time in Palestine, as well as his time living in the United States as, I don't know if she uses the word refugee, but like basically he couldn't live in Palestine anymore for various reasons you learn in the book. And it kind of details a little bit of the history of Palestine, just like a tiny bit, but it's mostly about her father and his love for his home country. I really enjoyed it. I didn't rate this because it's a picture book. It's not really for me, but I really enjoyed it, so I highly recommend that you guys read this as well. Also, this author, she's Palestinian. If you couldn't tell, her father's Palestinian, so she's Palestinian, and I follow her on Instagram, and she was talking about how we need to support Palestinian authors, so this is a book that I recommend you read. If you have kids, or if you don't have kids, who cares? Picture books they're valuable either way. So the next book that I read was a book that I had honestly been reading since like October of last year. This is All About Love by Bell Hooks. I started reading this for my senior seminar class, and we only read like 4 chapters out of, I believe there's 10 chapters in this book. So I basically got like halfway through it, and then I was like, okay, I need to put it down because I felt like this was an important read that I wanted to annotate, which like I never feel the need to annotate books. That's not really my thing. I don't normally annotate. This book, it was just kind of calling to me to annotate. So anyways, that is why I put it down, because I wanted to properly not just like read through it and like kind of push myself to get through it, if that makes sense. I wanted to take my time with it. I hope that makes sense to y'all. So I don't know if you can see, let me find a good page to show y'all. I would write, this is the end of a chapter. I have like a post-it note detailing like what I learned from the chapter. And then just throughout the chapter, I would I would just write in the margins. I don't know if you can tell that I wrote there, because I wrote in pencil. I don't know. If you have annotating tips, let your girl know, because I don't know what I'm doing. But anyways, I really thoroughly love this book. I think it's a book that I'm definitely going to revisit time and time again, and just look back at my annotations and kind of add to what I learned. And yeah, I'm excited to get into more Bell Hooks, because I know that she's got quite a few books out there, but I think this is her most popular one. Next, I read Ace of Spades by Farida Abike Iyamide. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. There's a ton of accents in her last name, so I apologize if I butchered that. So this book follows Devon and Chiamaka. They're both black students going to this prestigious academy, like a high school, basically, a private high school. And they are the only 2 black students in this school. And basically they are their secrets are like being told on e-blast to like the whole school. It's kind of like Gossip Girl, where the whole school will get a text from like the anonymous person sharing the tea, you know what I mean? So this book was really good. It's like a mystery thriller kind of book. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed all the different conversations that this book brought up in terms of queerness, being black and queer, coming from different backgrounds in terms of like Chiamaka, who is her up here. She comes from a very privileged background, and then Devon down here, he does not. And just kind of the nuances of coming from different backgrounds, different classes. And yeah, it was very interesting. There, like I mentioned, it's queer, which I really enjoyed. And it really keeps you on the edge of your seat. I read this for my January book club, so that's why I finished it in January for my book club, even though the book club was at like the beginning of the month, just because I like to read the books closer to when the book club discussion is. But anyways, I highly recommend this book. I gave it, I believe, 4.5 stars. I gave this 4 stars, and I'm just realizing now, I forgot to mention, but I gave Bell Hooks All About Love 5 stars. So highly recommend these 2 authors. Next, I read a book called Nasty Women, Feminism, Resistance, and Revolution in Trump's America. This is edited by, let me see. Sorry, my Storygraph is not telling me who edited the book, but basically this book called Nasty Women, I'll have it up here, or up here, I don't know, somewhere, is basically a collection of essays about various different women's experiences hearing about Trump's election, him winning, and then like a year into his presidency. It doesn't go too far into his presidency. Like, I think this book was published in 2017 or 2018. So it doesn't talk more about some of the policies that he signed off on and stuff like that. But I thought it was very interesting. I ultimately gave it a 3.75 just because a lot of a lot of the essays were a bit repetitive. Like, it was basically like every single person who had an essay in there was like, I was devastated hearing that Trump won. I had like a visceral reaction, which like, I understand that, and I'm not putting that reaction down. I'm just saying that it was a bit repetitive hearing that over and over and over again. But I did like some of the other essays. There were like maybe 1 or 2 5-star essays that I really appreciated. This book talks a lot about queerness and being like a person of color in Trump's America, you know, in such a climate that was very white-centric, and American exceptionalism was like a very prominent theme throughout his presidency. And so I ultimately think that if you're someone who hasn't heard about why people were hesitant or upset with Trump's presidency, you should read this book. But it doesn't really go further than that. Only a couple essays in this collection go further than like the initial hearing about him winning the election, which is what bothered me and why it didn't get a higher rating. I was expecting this to go a little more in depth about some of the policies he's written and how that has affected marginalized communities and stuff like that. So yeah, it just didn't fulfill my expectations, if that makes sense. So the next book that I read after that was Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. This book, oh my gosh, what a haunting, sad, not sad in the sense that like I was crying, but like also I was crying, grief-stricken book. I don't know what other adjectives to use, but this book, if you don't already know, because it's very popular, this book is about our 2 main characters. They are wives, they're married to each other. One is Leah and the other is Mary. So Leah is like a marine biologist, I believe, and she goes on an expedition in this submarine to, you know, find out stuff about marine biology, whatever. It's for work. She's supposed to be gone for like 3 weeks or something like that, or like a very short time. I don't remember how long it was supposed to be, but she ends up being gone for like 6 months. And Miri is left alone above ground, like above sea level, whatever you want to call it, on land, and is left alone, left to grieve for the seemingly the loss of her wife. And then Leah comes back and finally emerges from the depths of the sea. And Leah is fundamentally changed by this expedition gone wrong. And you get different perspectives, mostly just Miri and Leah's. You get Miri's perspective throughout the time that Leah was gone, but as well as during the time after she comes back. And then you also get Leah's perspective during the time she was gone, as well as after she comes back. So it was very interesting. I loved it. Oh my gosh, it struck a chord with me. I rated this 5 stars. I was listening to the audiobook of this while reading along to the ebook, so that's why I don't have it physically. But it was just so moving, so honestly like challenging to get through. Not challenging in the way that like I was struggling, it was a hard read. Challenging in the sense that like it tackles really hard topics. So if that intrigues you in any way, it's very much a character study. It has like a little speculative element to it, which I appreciated. I like little weird books. This is a very short book as well, so I highly recommend you read it. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed that. The next book that I read was The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. This is Essays on a Human-Centered Planet. Let me see if I have it in here. I rated every single story. Yes. I rated every single story, wrote it down on a piece of paper, like notebook, not notebook paper, but like notepad paper. Yeah. So, anyways, there was a ton of essays in here. I think overall this book was really funny and really informative as well as reflective, if that makes sense. John Green kind of integrates his own personal experiences with each essay that he writes. There's a bunch of really well-written essays. I think overall it was very well-written. Overall, I just think that some of the essays just lacked a little oomph, a little extra like something to enhance the experience. I really appreciated all that John Green had to say. I think that he is a very intelligent man and he is beautiful at storytelling, but it didn't hit as well as I thought it would. I thought it would be honestly a 4 or 5 star. It was like a 3 star. Not to say that I didn't enjoy it. I did enjoy it. It's just that there was more stories that were 3 stars than stories that were like a 4 or 5 star. So that's why I'm just giving it a 3 star. Because it was just overall like a 3. Okay? Don't come for me. Next, I read an audiobook. This was like an hour-long audiobook by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It's called Evidence of the Affair. This book follows our main character. I forget their names, but basically there's these 2 couples. They're both heterosexual couples. So man and woman over here, man and woman over here. The wife of one of the couples finds out that her husband is having an affair with the wife of the other couple. So the wife of the first couple contacts the husband of the other couple to be like, our spouses are having affairs. What do you want to do about it? And it goes from there. I will say the drama, it was kind of giving. I really appreciated the drama that was packed into this like 1 hour long story. It has Taylor Jenkins Reid's like signature writing. It hooked me from the beginning. I found it very interesting. But ultimately I gave it a 3.75 because there's nothing like outstanding about it. I kind of found it a little predictable, but I was kind of living for the drama, so that's why I got almost a 4-star and not just a 3-star. So yeah, if you are in the mood for a quick audiobook listen, this was a fun one. Next, I read a graphic novel. This is March Book 2 by John Lewis and Andrew Iden. This book basically is the second in a 3-part series of graphic memoirs by John Lewis. It's detailing John Lewis's life from his work in the 1960s as a civil rights leader, as well as leading up to and including the inauguration of Barack Obama in 2009. So it integrates both timelines of his life, the past in 1960 as well as the present in 2009. The present, which, like, when the books were written in 2009. Anyways, so I found this really interesting. I really enjoyed everything that John Lewis has written about his life, and it was just so insightful to see all that he has accomplished and all that he has gone through. I feel like we kind of generally, at least I have generally heard about like the civil rights movement and how, you know, there are certain events or certain days, certain incidents that stand out throughout the civil rights movement, especially in the 60s, but you don't see like the nitty-gritty of like what happens on the everyday, just like life of people in the civil rights movement when they're not out in the world doing like protesting and stuff like that. So I really found it to be educational at some level, but also it was just very interesting. Okay, my dog is barking. She heard something. But yeah, so I found this to be very educational on some level, as well as like very eye-opening in some instance. Like, I just like reading about history, and especially like civil rights movements, stuff like that. Or even like women's rights movements, just like big social movements like that. I really like learning about, because I am only 25. I did not live through those times. I don't know what actually happened on the ground level. So it's just very interesting to see. And like I said, it was a graphic memoir. So it was like graphic novel format, and you got to see like on the page what was happening, like the violence that was committed. It was very hard to get through at times, because especially in book number 2, it gets very graphic. And I was trying to read it at work one day just because I had some downtime, and I literally had to stop because I was like tearing up, and I was like, I cannot cry at work. This is not happening. So yeah, I gave it a 4-star. It did take me a while to get through. That's the only reason why it's not a 5-star. Like I said, I had to keep pausing, but not because it was bad or anything, just because it was like a lot of information to process, as well as like violence to process and sit with. I didn't want to just like rush through it. So yeah, I really recommend that you read the March graphic novel series by John Lewis. Outstanding graphic novel series. I really highly recommend. And the last book that I read in January was Iris Kelly Doesn't Date by Ashley Herring Blake. This book has my heart. This is probably my favorite in the... What is this? This is probably my favorite in the Bright Falls romance series. The first is Delilah Green Doesn't Care, which you've all probably heard of if you're on the same side of the internet as I am on. But this follows our last and final friend, Iris Kelly, who is a bit stubborn, if I'm being honest. But anyways, basically she is caught in a string of hookups, and the very beginning of the book kind of really outlines how anti-dating she is, anti-relationships she is, until she meets Stevie, who basically like changes her life. And I just really, on some level, I connected with Iris Kelly. My camera cut me off, so I don't know where I was. But basically, I think I was talking about how I connected with Iris Kelly. She was very insecure at the beginning of this book in terms of like her past relationships. She was insecure and very untrusting, not willing to trust people's like real feelings, even though they were like literally telling her like, I like you. And she was like, no, you don't. You think you do, but you don't. So I kind of connected with her on that because I used to be like that, but I have grown since then, so I'm not like that anymore. But that is to say, this book made me cry. I loved Iris Kelly and Stevie so much. So much. And I think that it was the perfect conclusion to the series. And I'm sad it's over, so I might just end up rereading the series. But if you couldn't tell, this is like a 5-star read for me. I loved it. Mwah. Chef's kiss. Alright y'all, so here are some of the books that I read this past month. I only have like half of them because the other ones were like all library books except for the Taylor Jenkins Reid one. That one was just an Audible audiobook. But anyways, I had, in my opinion, a good reading month, but I feel like this wrap up just shows me that like it was kind of average. I don't know. Leave me comments down below recommending me books based off the ones that I liked in January. And leave me a comment down below telling me what your favorite read was in January. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. I normally post on Mondays because I have the weekend to edit my videos and film, and then I'll post on Monday. So if that changes, click the notification bell as well. I will have all of my social medias linked in the description down below. I have Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Storygraph, and Goodreads. Follow me or friend me on those, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.